if nobody's watching the border, if Afghanistan can be 80-100 billion dollar of arms left, I mean, if you have a incognizant and president and that's sitting at the helm, who's controlling the printing press?
Well, let's shift to platinum and discuss that metal, because a lot of people are pointing out that it appears to be very undervalued, especially when we compare it with gold. Talk to us about the main uses for platinum that drive the thesis and the current setup you see for that metal right now.
I'm a student of platinum. I founded a company called Prophecy Platinum 10 years ago. It's about a cautionary tale because I bought into this. I'm a CFA and an ardent technical chartist. Sometimes, Jesse, you cannot buy into this ratio too much. And I got into platinum a little bit too early and bought into the platinum to gold ratio of 1.3 to premium to gold. But there has been a structural, just happy paradigm shift in a bear market for platinum, and platinum went down more than 50% in the last 15 years. Recall that when I came on your show about, just over close to a year ago, you talked about platinum, and I said it's my least favorite metal, and platinum since then has gone down 30%, and palladium went down 50%. The reason is a couple of fold. People are not getting married nowadays, so the jewelry demand for platinum has gone down. And then the other major use for platinum was catalysts, auto catalyst converters. And platinum is for diesel automobiles. And because in the last run up on palladium back in early 2000, the last run up for platinum back in early 2000, when platinum went to 2000, and a lot of auto manufacturers converted their catalytic converter technologies to palladium, and they never looked back. So platinum's main usage right now is jewelry, which is declining, and then because millennials don't buy jewelries anymore, but there's a resurgence on gold. We can talk about that because of mobility. So people are carrying snippets of gold traveling around. But then the other thing is the diesel catalytics. And the diesel usage mainly is for European automobiles is coming down because the Volkswagen scandal back about 7-8 years ago, back in 2016. However, platinum right now is so beaten down, and I do believe that we're in the era of reflation. That even though there's a lack of demand, part of that is I think the world population is declining actually quite rapidly. However, we're just hitting that level where the cost of cost production is at the level where there's just not going to be additional supply coming onto stream, and the majority of that is coming from South Africa and in Russia. And then you got this new advent of usage in platinum in terms of the hydrogen engines in the new era of the electric vehicles. So all of that coming sort of into consideration. At the current 800, platinum bottom at about 800, and now it's trading about 950. It deserves a sort of a bottom fishing candidate. I had sort of went out earlier on the limb and a couple of years ago, say platinum go as low as 500. I don't see that right now. I mean, it's been beaten down a couple of times in the $800 level range, and now it's trading at 200-day moving average at around 930, 940. I think anything in the low 900 is a good entry point for platinum. It is rare. It still has these utilities, and then you got this new usage and new sort of breathing into new life of platinum in terms of the hydrogen engines for the next generation electric vehicles.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of it coming from Russia and South Africa. Could you talk to us about the current supply chain setup for platinum, why it's important to secure a domestic supply of that particular metal?
Annual production of platinum has been very steady on the decline, about 5 million ounces a year. So it is not even 1/10 of it's 5% of the gold production. So it's extremely limited supply. Is one of the very rare metals. Majority of that is coming from South Africa, number one, followed by Russia. You do have some PGMs coming out of there is a PGM Stillwater, but that's being out of Montana in the United States. But that is being bought in by Sibanye of South Africa. So majority of platinum is accounted for in South Africa, and and it is a very precarious metals. I think right now a lot of the Russian supply right now is being smuggled into China, and then from there, and then exported out of China. But however, it's getting caught right now, and then the Biden administration is talking about tripling the steel tariff, and anything coming from China right now is being slapped a 20% tariff. I know because I live in the Canadian-Chinese border, trying to import some of the Canadian goods into U.S. borders, which is tariff-free, but if it's Chinese-made origin, boom, automatic 20% duty. So China, so it's what right now we see is seeing a not so much disintegration, but disruption of the global commerce. And the theme is not going to change. In fact, it's going to worsen. How do I know that? Well, I fly a lot. If you fly from Germany to, say, Beijing, for example, you now have to go through below the Mediterranean, below Ukraine, go through Turkey, and you have to zigzag through to get to Beijing, whereas before you would just fly over Russia. So the Russian airspace is completely shut out. Saying if I just flew from Vancouver to Korea, you used to be able to tap into the Russian airspace, fly across Antarctica and across Russia to go. But right now you have to go, through below Alaska, and you have to go through this timeline and go through Tokyo. And then with all the uncertain geopolitics right now, it just seemed like everything is sort of ducking in line in these major commercial fly routes, and you're not going to fly through across the you could used to fly from Beijing to Chicago go through the North Pole. Can't do that anymore. Can you imagine that if the Chinese Sino-U.S. war worsens, which absolutely will do that, there is a hardened resolve to remove Xi Jinping from the leader, just like what they're doing with Putin right now. And actually, there's some talk about Putin already had died, and what you're seeing is a body double. But that's just a bit of a rumor. And so things are going to get a lot worse before it gets better, unfortunately. And if you can imagine that, and also that right now, in terms of flights from China to United States, it's only 20 or 10% of what it was in terms of frequency. So things are not getting better. Things are not recovering. And imagine if the airspace is shut out from Chinese airspace is shut out. A lot of it will be next to the flight time from Japan to Europe is going to increase by. They probably have to go through India. Just a lot of things people are not imagining, are not thinking about. And that Chinese is the biggest producer of steel, 50% of that, and a lot of different things. I think the supply chain disruption, we're going to see a lot more to come in the future, and that which makes this all so much important. And with all the tariffs and customs, that you're seeing sort of the Chinese Russia is one group, and you're seeing the BRIC countries, South America is one group, and you're going to see the North America is one group. They don't see eye to eye. And what we're seeing in the globalization in the last 30 years is only a marriage of convenience. And you're going to see the further interruptions and breakdowns of these three different trading blocks, and which goes back to your saying about making the sort of the independence and self-reliance of critical minerals, and just the basic building blocks of the economy, such as food, so much more important. People just haven't thought about that, Jesse.
Yeah, and nickel also falls under that critical mineral category, something that's going to be very important as well to secure a domestic supply of. Talk to us about the importance of nickel, because this is another commodity. It's not often discussed. Investors don't pay a ton of attention to it. Why is nickel so important? And what is the broad investment thesis, the supply-demand fundamentals? What's the setup for nickel that you see?
Well, I think, Jesse, if you go backward, where the nickel stands, nickel right now is at $7. And Elon Musk sort of lit a fire in 2021 when nickel went from 7 to 50. And that broke the circuit of the London Metals Exchange. It's a long story, we can talk about it. And now it's all the way back to what used to be a very heavy resistance, now it's very heavy support. I believe the equilibrium for nickel is close to $15 to $20 as a double from here. looking at the sort of relative trading prices of copper. Like for example, when copper was 70 cents before all got started back in year 2000, nickel was trading at $3-4. So you should be looking at 3 to 4 times the price of copper to gauge for the natural price for nickel. The reason for sort of the current depressed value, which what makes a good candidate again like platinum for a bottom fishing candidate, is that there's a huge wholesale dumping of nickel from Indonesia. And they are literally taking nickel oxide, scooping from surface. They are burning. And not just burning, they're using the highest grade of acid, sulfuric acid, like the version that you see in the Pulp Fiction movie. And if you dip your hands there, you're not going to see anything coming out of. And they're applying something like 30 to 50 times atmospheric pressure. They're literally using the dirtiest technology to extract nickel from sort of the almost impossible to extract nickel stuff, right, out of Indonesia, and they're dumping the residuals of all this impossible to fathom, to treat, to sort of to manage these tailings material into the ocean. And that's why you're seeing this nickel dumping, and the Chinese are indiscriminate in buying these dirty stuff because they just don't have a lot of regard right now. Maybe sometime down the road that will, but it will be completely counterintuitive to take that nickel, right, to be installing your automobile vehicles, which I don't think will happen. They're still doing that right now, but it would not be in the foreseeable future. So right now there is a depegging of nickel per se, because that stuff, I mean, the actual nickel price right now you're seeing trading on the London Metal Exchange, less than 20% of that is the global nickel trade goes through the LME, because the majority of that nickel is in a semi sort of a intermediate form, and that got shipped to China, and then China do all sorts of things to produce automotive vehicles, nickel sulfate, and then for nickel steel, nickel. So I was just saying that nickel usage right now, a lot of that, only 10 to 20% of the nickel prices that you see on the London Metals Exchange is actually being traded. Like 80% of the trades are outside of the LME, because all the intermediate form of nickel is being sold from Indonesia and elsewhere into China. In terms of nickel pig iron for the stainless steel industry, that's about 80% to 90% of the nickel usage. And then the other one is the battery market for electric vehicles. And that in itself is a nickel sulfate market, which again is an intermediate product. I think over time, as I mentioned to you, that the opportunity is that the dirty nickel will be separated from the clean nickel. And then secondly, the current refined nickel trading on the London Metal Exchange is not taking into account all the cost of production, and that eventually there's going to be a catch up on the refined nickel class that's going to be separated from all the intermediate nickel products. So right now, really, the nickel price we see right now, it really is a benchmark of how all the intermediate form of products being packed onto. But this pack is going to be broken sometime in the future, because, like I said, the current nickel price does not reflect the cost of production of pure nickel, which is what it's being traded for, and nobody's making nobody's making money at the current refined nickel price at around $8.50, which really should be double from where we are.
Let's shift to Flying Nickel Mining. For those who are unfamiliar, maybe just start with giving us an overview of the company.
It is, it's illuminating from what I see. A lot of the things that I study are completely turned upside down. I don't watch televisions anymore. So the only thing that guides my thesis and is my observation, and is what is actually happening in the world, right? And like I said, the power that be is going to take the interest rate to much, much higher levels. And all the Feds talk about 3 cuts and the dots and all that stuff is just creating a bit of charade in keeping the market participants continue to be guesswork. Also, you're seeing, I'm not necessarily bearish at the housing market. For example, you're seeing the Bill Gates and the Jeff Bezos and other invisible hands that are gobbling up housing, by but 60-70% of the real estate probably is already owned by the power that be. So like I said, we're going to pre-medieval era of which there's haves and there haves nots. Now going to FLYN Nickel, it's one of the it's a company spun out of Silver Elephant, and we talked about Silver Elephant a year ago. And FLYN Nickel, in short, is trading at less than $10 million market cap. And that's 1/3 of when the Elephant bought it 3 years ago and subsequently spun out. We IPO'd at over close to $100 million, exactly when I have a neck for good timing. And that's exactly when Elon Musk talked about, buy as much nickel as you want, which is the de facto standards for today's EV vehicles. And all the speculator came in and cooked up nickel from 10 to 50 in 2 weeks. And that's why we're seeing a bit of a hangover from that. And now it's a good entry point. FLYN Nickel has one of the highest grade open pit greenfield nickel projects in North America, in Canada, in the Thompson Nickel Belt. And the project is at a full permit status, just pending a very minor notice of operation. So it already has environmental impact assessment out of Canada. And so, over $70 million being spent on it. And there's over 30 million tons of nickel grading at 0.74. That's over 500 million pounds of nickel. That's in an open pit configuration, grading at 0.7%. And the current open pit nickel mines, nickel sulphide, I'm not talking about laterite in Indonesia, they're grading at an average around 0.4. And that grade is going to go to 0.2 because of the current suppressed nickel price. That's just going to make the Minago more special going into the future. So right now, it's one of the very few fully permitted project absent of a notice of alteration, which will be granted this year. So the project could be deemed as shovel ready, and also on top of that, nickel platinum discovery we just made, it was just published a couple of weeks ago. So it's a very, very interesting project. I watched it for 20 years and became available 3 years ago, and Elephant snatched it, and then it subsequently spun out. I was pitching myself to have gotten this project because I know the nickel project landscape very well in Canada, and I could never imagine and thought that it is at the valuation of what it is today. It is a fraction of the money that's gone into the project. It's 1/3 of what the company has spent to buy the project and spending on developing the project in the last 3 years. And now here we are. It's really at a very peculiar, unfathomable trading range. But like I said earlier, the market sometimes can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us some more color on the Minago project. Talk to us about the infrastructure you have in place there. How is the jurisdiction itself in terms of your relationship with the local government? You mentioned you're already permitted pending a final approval, which is great. Anything else about the project that you think investors should be paying attention to?
Well, like we talked about, I think with the fractured world, there is an absolute premium being placed for projects that are in North America. And not only within North America, there are certain jurisdictions within North America that are not touchable, such as California or say Ontario. Like certain parts of the neighborhood in North America just has that mentality. They have crossed the chasm. They've declared, all right, no mining. Minnesota, Michigan, for example, and Manitoba, Minago project sitting in Thompson Nickel Belt is the second largest nickel camp in North America, and with over 5 billion pounds of nickel being produced. The project is literally off 1 kilometer off a paved highway. So it will be like, if you look up the map, which is in the presentation also on our website, flynickel.com, it's almost like a garbage. It's like a fork of 1 kilometer off the highway, like where you dump your garbage. That's how it looked from the helicopter when I flew there. So the infrastructure is excellent. It has water, has power, has highway, and then the mineral resources well developed. Also is well known, and Vale is currently still mining just in the neighborhood, and they're still trucking the concentrate to the smelters in Sudbury. So mineralogy is well known, and the resource is well known. It's open pit, it's high grade. So there's really not a lot of permitting risk, geopolitical risk. or mining risk per se. It's open pit configuration. It's a conventional flotation. It's the cleanest nickel out there. And because Manitoba Hydro is 99% powered in Manitoba, and the Minago project, we hired Scar to do the carbon emission study. It is the lowest 1% in carbon emission once the project should go to production. The First Nations has sat on the project for 20 years, waiting for somebody to come along to develop the project. So the First Nations Nori House has a 20% stake in FLYN nickel. They actually spend money. They bought the project at 10 cents, and the company right now is at 8 cents. And we have a very strong local support. Well, they're a little bit disappointed we couldn't go the project a little faster than we are. So typically they have resistance, right, and the roadblocks to slow down the project. But we're actually the opposite. They couldn't get the project going fast enough. And Nori House is one of the most innovative top 10 First Nations in Canada. So we have a very cordial relationship, and they're very, very supportive of our cause in working together to attract capital to put the project into production.
That's fantastic. You recently released some news about a 42% increase of in-pit measured and indicated nickel resources at Minago. Bring us up to speed on that.
Minago is well drilled out. It's been discovered in the 1980s. About 80,000 meters of drilling were gone into the ground. So right now, just so you understand inflation, back in the days, it's about, well, when I started in the mining business, only not so long ago, but I'm 50 years old. I've been at it for 25 years. In the early 2000s, it would cost you about $100, $150 a meter to drill. Right now, to drill in Minago is close to $500. And and that's why you really want to invest in a project that's in late stage near permit. Otherwise, to get the permit to develop a project, it's going to cost you arm and a leg. And just the 80,000 meters of drilling would cost you $45 million. What we did is we did a lot of study because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. There's 1 terabyte of data. We actually put together, we did extensive modeling. So we had a round of very precision drilling in 2022. We spent about a couple of $1 million. So we drilled a few holes. We were able to infill drill some of the holes and also hypothesize some of the areas where we thought the project is mineralization at depth. So we were able to drill some surgical holes to prove that the mineralization is a lot shallower than we had thought in the past. So that through that round of drilling in 2022 and additional modeling, and we were able to upgrade a lot of the inferred resource and also some of the out of pit resource into the measure indicated in pit resource, because that is really the resource we're after, right? Eventually, when the resource, and that is the resource will be converted into proven and probable reserves. And at that stage, then the project can be financed based on the reserves, not on the resource. So I think we are 90% there now. We have a measured indicated resource. If we're able to convert majority of that resource into proven and probable reserves, and based on the permit of which we've been granted, the configuration of the permit, the mine could potentially have a mine life of more than a decade. And not just on paper, because the project is only 2% of the land holding has been explored. It's 197 square kilometer, and only 5% of the area has been drilled. And we believe that with modern exploration techniques, with the geophysics that we see on the map, have mapped out with the help of the Japanese and a lot of the different experts, that there could be multiple discoveries of Minago. So we're very, very confident that once the project goes into production, there's a lot more discoveries to be made. But we're just being very reassured of the work, arduous, tremendous amount of work that we have put into the project to be able to upgrade, to bring up additional 40% of the measured and indicated resource that are designed within the pit shell. And then also, just quickly in that, we also published inaugural Platinum Palladium resource, over 400,000 ounces of PGM that have been discovered and published. And that's, again, I want to thank our team in really studying the project, thinking outside the box. And what happened is, believe it or not, only 10% of the PGM have been assayed by previous operators because they're focused on nickel so much. So Minago has always been known for nickel, but now we brought this new dimension of PGM into this. The reason is when we drilled in 2022, all the holes, we found nickel, we found PGM. We said, what the hell is going on here? So then we go back and we understood that literally there's a very close correlation between PGM and nickel. And instead of spending another $30 million in drilling, we went back to the core shack. We were painstakingly taking selective representative cores around all over the project in location and all the different sections and depths. So we're able to, we asked another 10% of the PGM to come out with 20% of overall project in asking for PGM. We're able to come out with that resource. Well, we're very confident of the resource that we have, and the entire, the project of the measured indicated resource is ready to go into a feasibility study and be upgraded into proven and probable. Now we're waiting for, it's just a bit of an uptick on the PGM price and an uptick on the nickel price, which I'm very confident. I think, like I said, I think at a $2,000 gold, at a $450 copper, you really want to have a balance your portfolio and have elements of nickel and PGM into your portfolio.
Great. Well, John, this has been a fantastic conversation. We went all over the map here, from the broad economy to the NASDAQ and the S&P to precious metals, platinum, nickel. It's been fantastic. Before I do let you go, are there any final words you'd like to share about Flying Nickel? I am going to put a link in the description below to the website as well as social media. Anything else you'd like to share about the company you think people should be looking out for?
Market study is my passion. I lived more than 10 years in each of the continents, in South America, in Asia, in North America. I traveled extensively, so economics and the market study is my passion. You can always look me up at Twitter. Like I said, just Google John Lee Silver Elephant or John Lee Fly Nickel. I do provide quite a lot of market analysis. I used to come on a lot of different shows. I think Jesse, you're my second appearance on the shows. Not that I have disappeared, because just been very busy running two companies, and the valuation is never being more attractive for Fly Nickel. And there's nothing in the hidden closet. We're very, very bullish of. I think this is one of the very few projects that we believe can bring clean nickel out into the market by 2030. And then if you look at the future of EV, which is here to stay, it's really offering a very unique combination of compelling value proposition, investment proposition, in that you have the palladium, which is the current catalytics for gasoline power industrial combustion engine. You have nickel, which is the de facto standards for today's high performance EV batteries. And this Elon Musk talk about, their car batteries are not actually lithium batteries. The lithium is just the dressing in the salad. The cell itself is actually nickel. And then you have the platinum hydrogen cells, which Toyotas are rolling out already along with General Motors. And these are the cleanest form of electric vehicles out there. That's in the future. So this offers that very unique combination. And in the top tier jurisdiction, that project has been fully permitted. It's a very unique value proposition. And if there's anything that I see in this world, I've been at it for 20 years and been on this planet for 50, is that things are going faster. The clocks are ticking a lot faster, right? Can you see that? Like, remember, I had a Motorola Razr phone like 10 years ago. You have one of those flip phones like a Motorola Razr. These are the hippest phones out there, right? And also Motorola, also the Nokia, these flip phones that you see from the Matrix, the movie. This only 10, 15 years ago. And the resolution of these phones taken, like compared to what we have today, is shocking. So if anything, the clocks are ticking faster, and maybe I was thinking nickel had a bit more life in it, in the EV industry, but it's just shocking to see how things are moving along. So you got to pay attention to the future of EV, which is hydrogen cells, and you got to have a stake in platinum. I just cannot think of a better place to place your bet than Fly Nickel in a top jurisdiction, and with a diversified holding in platinum, in palladium, and nickel as well. Jesse.
Awesome. Well, links in the description, as I mentioned. Thank you once again, John, for coming on and sharing your knowledge with the audience.
Yeah, look us up, FLYN, FLYN on the TSX Ventures, and FLYNF, FLYNF on the OTC. And look forward to maybe providing another update towards the September and see where gold and silver and nickel stand.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.